People of Reddit, I need your help. I have messed up real bad and need some guidance or advice as to how to sort this out. If any of you relate to my position or has seen someone in this mess, please share your thoughts. I am a female, 26-year-old woman who has been married to my husband, 35, for 3 years now. I'm going to call him G here because I can't reveal his real name. We have no children. My husband owns an investment firm. He's sort of a big deal in Wall Street. I met my husband when I was interviewing him for my college magazine. I was doing my major in journalism and was the top of my class. My professor told me it would be great for me if I could snag an interview with the chief guest of the event that's going to happen in our university. I was a dedicated student. You know, the type who studies all the time. That was me. I called his office many times only to be told that he's busy and didn't have the time. Anyone else would have given up, but not me. I went directly to his office and told his secretary, who smiled at me with fake politeness, that I was going to wait as long as it takes, but I wasn't going to leave without meeting him. She told me to wait in the reception area and that she'll let me know if he gets free. I kept waiting for him when suddenly he came out from the opposite end of the floor. He was in a 3-piece suit. I thought only rich people in movies dress up like that. He had people making way for him while he was talking to another guy about something. I had never seen him before or even his pictures or something, but there was something about him which made no confusion as to who is the CEO of this company. He had this aura of authority with him. He commanded the room just with his presence. He stopped when he came near me. He looked at me in confusion, probably wondering what I'm doing here. I looked completely out of place in that office in my cashmere sweater and jeans and sneakers, while everyone around me was dressed in very expensive suits and dresses. I stopped staring at him and myself. I told him that I'll take a few minutes of his time for this interview. He nodded at me and then asked his assistant to give us some time in his office. He took me to his office and told me to take a seat. I took his interview. He answered all my questions with calmness and confidence. It looked like it was nothing for him. It probably wasn't. He did much bigger things than giving his interviews to college students like me. I left his office and drove all the way back to my apartment. I had developed a crush on him that day. A month later, he came to my university for the event. Everyone was fawning over him, from the faculty to the students. I wasn't alone in his fan club. I took the first row seats to hear his speech. Somewhere in between his speech, his eyes found mine. I didn't expect him to recognize me, but he did. He looked at my way and my heart started thumping. He continued his speech with the same confidence. After his speech, there was a dinner organized by the university. Since my professor really liked my interview, I was one of the few students who were invited to attend it. I never got much time for my studies to socialize and attend parties like other students. So when I got the invite to this prestigious dinner, I didn't miss it. I went to the university's garden where the dinner was organized. I saw my professor talking to G, and when my professor saw me, he invited me to meet him as well. I went there and introduced myself. I felt shy as well. "I remember you," he said. I was half surprised and half shocked. The professor left when someone called him. She asked his assistant for his card and gave it to me. There was a personal number mentioned in it. "I'd like to know you more," he said, the confidence radiating from him. I took his card in my hand and just kept looking at him. He then gave me his phone to put my number in it. I did that with shaky hands. Some other important guest came to talk to him and I excused myself. Even today, when I think of that day, it feels like a scene straight from the movie A Nerd Like Me and a Guy Like Him. Everyone around him had a crush on him. I was no different. Soon after, he asked me out to dinner. I should have said no, but I was just a young girl who had this enormous crush on a guy way out of her league and didn't want to say no to this once-in-a-lifetime thing. I told him sure, and he asked for my address and told me to be ready. He told me that a car would be waiting for me, then ended the call. That Friday, we went on our first date. I was intimidated by his presence at first, but then he calmed me down by talking to me with extra sweetness. That wasn't the only date we had, like I thought. We went on many dates for the next month or so. Finally, one day I got the courage to ask him why he chose me when he could have anyone. He told me that he liked being around me. That was enough to make me feel special. For a girl like me whose life revolved around studies, I never thought about having a love life. And now I was dating the hotshot alpha CEO. Talk about fate. I was a nerd through my school and college life. I had never even thought that I was going to be with a guy like G. Being with him showed me what I was missing in life. He would take me to fancy dinners. His apartment looked like a fancy suite in a very expensive hotel. I liked having fun and enjoying the luxuries. I had never been in any physical relationship before G. I was inexperienced about everything. He taught me everything. Our relationship was going great even though I was afraid that something was going to go wrong. He would treat me with all the luxuries available in the world. Asked me to move in with him in his penthouse and I agreed. I'm not going to pretend to all of you that I was in true love or something. If I'm being honest, I just enjoyed the experience that came with his lifestyle. His lifestyle was so different from mine. We came from completely different worlds. I came from a middle-class family. I got into my college through financial aid. Studying was all I ever knew. I was young, and even though I wasn't in love with G, I knew that we could have a good life together. I did everything to be the perfect girlfriend to him. Now that I had a taste of this life, I had no intention of going back to my old one. I graduated university the same year we met, and I applied for a job in the local news company. One evening when she asked me how I liked my new job, I told him that it was great, but I wish I could have started my career with the leading news channel, name withheld for legal purposes. He smiled at me and called his assistant and said something I didn't hear. We continued eating our dinner in peace.
Hello, everyone. Regrettably, the vast majority of viewers are not currently subscribed to our channel. It would be greatly appreciated if you could take just a moment and click on the subscribe button. Subscribing is free, and you can unsubscribe at any time. We apologize for any inconvenience, and we sincerely thank you if you decide to subscribe.
The next day, I got the call from that leading news channel. They informed me that I have gotten the position there as the senior journalist. My boyfriend is something else, I thought as I made my way to my new office and my new car. Gift for my boyfriend for my new job. I was happy in my new job and in my personal life. I got everything I wanted with a snap of my fingers. I had a caring boyfriend who had the power to make or destroy anything within seconds. After a year of us dating, when G proposed to me to marry him, I was over the moon. We had a beautiful ceremony. It made celebrity weddings look like child's play. You must be thinking that I have the perfect life. Why am I here? But wait till you hear the next part. My life has come to a crossroad where every path leads to an end. I don't know how to get out of this mess. The mess I made. Like I said earlier, I got the position as the senior journalist in the leading news channel. My initial days were great there, but as time passed, my responsibilities increased. My work required that I had to contact my boss a lot more than before. My boss, M28, was a good-looking man. All my female colleagues had a crush on him. Working closely with him made him even more attractive to me. He was closer to age and me than G. Walguy had this energy where he dominated everyone with presence alone. My boss had a more boyish vibe going on. Sometimes I would find him staring at me and then suddenly look away when I caught him staring. This was the second time I was getting any kind of male attention in my life. I wasn't going to do anything about it, but I thought that it'll be fun to enjoy the attention while it lasts. I used to sneak glances at him when I thought he wasn't looking. We would talk casually about other things than work. And it felt easier to talk to him than it had been with G. Maybe because we were around the same age, we understood each other clearly. One day, I had a fight with G before he left for London. He wanted me to accompany him to that event, but I didn't want to go. I had some important work deadlines to work and I didn't have to worry about it. I didn't like the way he treated my work so lightly. We got into a fight about it. After that, he left for the airport while I made my way to the office. I was upset the whole day because of my fight with G. I couldn't focus on anything, let alone my work. She didn't respect me or my work. He thought that everything would go according to his wishes. I was really upset. As evening rolled around, I decided to work a bit late as I didn't want to go home. Everything would have reminded me about him, upsetting me even more. I didn't realize when time passed and suddenly it was past 9. The entire floor was almost empty. I made my way to the pantry to grab a cup of coffee. I ran into my boss, who was getting himself a coffee too. He asked me if something was wrong. I was moved by his observance. This guy didn't even know me personally, but could still figure out something is wrong, while my husband didn't understand me even when I was doubting my thoughts at him. I would have usually avoided sharing my personal life, but the tenderness in his voice made me want to open up to mistake number one. I told him about my fight with G. He was patient and understanding and listened to my rant. I didn't realize how close we had gotten. I was already in a vulnerable state due to my fight, so when he touched my hair and came closer to kiss me, I didn't stop him. Mistake number two. One thing led to another, and suddenly we were in his car going to his place. All the anger and situation I felt because of my fight with G was gone. I wanted to forget everything about G that night while I slept with my boss in his bed. It wasn't just that night. It was too difficult to resist the temptation. She had gone for a whole week, and the entire week, every day after work, I left with my boss in his car for his home. I told him that this will only continue till G comes back. Everything would go back to normal then. Everything didn't go back to normal. When I returned home one morning from my boss's home to get ready for work, G was already home. He wasn't supposed to come home for the next 2 days, so I was shocked when I saw him drinking his scotch while sitting on our couch while his eyes were trained on me. I pretended everything was normal and went to kiss him. "How was your trip?" I asked him. "Productive," he told me. His expression didn't give away anything. It never did. It was impossible to know what was going on in his mind. "Where were you last night?" he asked me in a neutral voice. "Oh, just out with a friend from college," I replied, and hoped that vague reply was sufficient from him. "Friend?" he asked, like he was waiting for me to say more. I tried to ignore him as I got ready and told him that I was going to the office. He nodded, but told me to be at home before 5 p.m. as he had a surprise plan for me. This eased the tension inside my chest. He wouldn't plan surprises for me if he suspected something wrong was going on. I told him that I would be here and made my way to the office. I thought I should inform my boss that G was back, and we cannot continue the affair anymore. I went to his office to inform him, only to find the office was empty. I was already half an hour late, and he wasn't here. It wasn't usual for him to be late to the office. When I left his house in the morning, he told me he'd see me in the office. Why wasn't he here? I thought to myself as I made my way back to my office. I tried to call him up, but his phone was switched off. I left him messages to call me back, but didn't get any reply on that either. I was worried for a while, but then thought maybe he got caught in some personal emergency or something. His family didn't live in the city, so maybe it was something related to them. I did my work, and when the clock rolled around 4, I started packing up my stuff to get home. I didn't want to get G upset. I was already walking on a thin rope around him. I reached home before 5 like I was told. He was waiting for me in our living room when I entered the penthouse. He was drinking something whiskey, I guessed. He looked at me and then smiled. It wasn't the type of smile I was used to getting from him. This smile he gave when he was going for an acquisition. Like he knew he was going to make the other person leave the meeting with nothing left. I made my way to him, and he told me to take a seat on the couch with him. I asked him what the surprise was, and he gave me a smile again, which made me nervous for a reason I couldn't pinpoint then. He told me it was fine, but would have been better with you, he said, smiling. Guilt hit me hard for going behind his back and lying to him. I tried to give him a smile. "How was your work?" he asked me. "It was fine," I managed to answer back. "Talking about work, let's watch some news," he said, looking at his watch. "Sure," I said as he took the remote control and put a news channel on our 70-inch television. The shock of the century came through me as on the TV screen was my boss, and the guy the first had been sleeping with for the last week. He wasn't anchoring or anything. The camera captured him as he was being taken to the police station. All the cameras were placed on him while the officer guided him, and he followed with his hands in handcuffs. "What is happening?" I managed to ask and looked at my husband. He was looking at me, gauging my expression, and the look on his face told me that he didn't like whatever he saw on my face. "He's my boss. Why is he being arrested?" I asked again with a straight face, trying to hide my distress. Just as I asked him, the news channel showed that a large amount of drugs were found in his apartment. I knew he did drugs occasionally. I told him to stop as well this week. But I was sure he wasn't involved in drug trafficking like the news channel said. He was going to get in prison for at least 10 years, the news channel informed. You worried about him? My husband asked me, taking my chin in his hands. He was my colleague, I replied, trying to talk in a neutral voice. That's all, he asked back. Yeah, I said in a calm voice. He smiled like he had just caught a fish in his trap. He took the remote control again, and suddenly the TV screen was showing pictures of me and my boss in the pantry, us leaving in his car, pictures of us being intimate in the parking lot. All of these were from last week. You know I hate liars, right? My heartbeat increased. I had never been so scared. Suddenly, it occurred to me that it cannot be a coincidence that my boss got arrested the same day she found out about us. You are behind his arrest? I asked him in a scared whisper. He laughed then. He touched what was mine. He had to pay some way or other, he replied calmly. I knew it was stupid to ask him questions, but I couldn't hold myself back. Of all the years we were together, I always kept an eye on you. The photos were taken everywhere, from shopping malls, restaurants, to even my office. Another question slipped out of my lips. How did you get him arrested? There's nothing money and power can't make happen. I knew then that he wouldn't let me go easily. Are you going to divorce me? I asked with tears in my eyes. He made an expression like he hadn't thought about it. I should divorce you, but where's the fun in just that? You are going to pay for your lies as well. I started crying loudly then. He paid no attention to me and gave me an envelope. Inside the envelope were our divorce papers. It made me confused. I looked at him. I said there's no fun in just that. Doesn't mean I'm going to stay married to a lying witch like you. He motioned me to sign it as he spoke. I signed the paper. Now about the fun part. I realized I have treated you with luxuries you didn't deserve. So now you are going to do what you deserve. You're going to serve as a maid for me. Come to think of it, you deserve that only. It was my mistake to treat you as a queen. Now I will correct my mistake. You can't do that. I'll go to the police, I said with horror. He showed me another paper which had my signature. It was a contract between me and G. It stated that if I cheated on G, he had the authority to make me work for him under any capacity he desired. I remembered that document. I signed it when I was signing my prenup before marriage, but didn't read it. I was so screwed. He called the security guards who took me to the servant quarters. I spent the whole night crying. I couldn't escape this. What had I done? I started working in the penthouse some days later. I had to do all the household work. It's been a month since that horrible day. She had not been around the penthouse much, but he still had staff over to monitor my work. All my belongings had been taken away from me. I'm just left with my phone and a few of my clothes. I cannot share my situation with anyone. My life is worse than hell now. If anyone knows anything that could help me, please feel free to share. I've shared my story here because it felt too suffocating, and I wanted to let it out. I don't want to make things worse for me and therefore have not shared any information like name or work about anyone. I hope you all understand.
Thank you for tuning in to Audio Tales AI. If you enjoyed today's story, remember to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support keeps these stories coming. Until next time, remember, love, trust, and understanding are the foundation of a great relationship. But betrayal, lust, and deception make for the best YouTube videos.